Cool, all right, we might get started. Hello everybody, welcome to this beautiful morning. Welcome to our seminar. This seminar is called Hormonal Balance for Women. So, as the name says, we're going to be chatting a lot about hormones. First up, whoops, our slide on biggest sponsors is missing. Yeah, that's right. Anyway, first of all, we'd like to thank the guys coming down to support us. So we've got tailor-made treats with some delicious food you guys have probably had. We've got some awesome choc haze that is for sale as well. Nutrition Warehouse are here with their protein, and we've also got some sneaky giveaways at the end, thanks to them. Plus the delicious coffee is from Bean High Coffee outside. So I'd like to thank them very much for coming down and supporting us. I had a few delicious sips of coffee, which is not loud. Cool. Alright. I know, the food is good. I wouldn't have put it out there unless you couldn't have it. Alright. Women can seem like a complete mystery. They are very complicated and each one of us is quite unique, particularly when it comes to our hormones. Stephen Hawking can't even figure us out. But that's also what makes us incredible. Our bodies have the gift of being able to create life, which is awesome, but that also means that our bodies can have these complicated systems and hormones that creates the ability to do this. While this balance has immense power, this also means that when it is thrown off, that it can wreak absolute havoc in our bodies, which, as you probably looked from your test, might be happening right now. From the outside, the symptoms and behaviours, they can make no sense and you can seem like a complete mystery to yourself and others. But the biggest thing about this is if you look inside and start to understand your body, you can start to make sense of what's going on and start to understand yourself. If the balance is realigned with these hormones, you can start feeling like yourself again, in fact feeling absolutely amazing. So many women never understand or take the time to look inside. They just accept it as fact that their bodies are crazy and that their hormones are out of whack. But there is so much you can do to help. And Nikiita and I are going to be going through this today with lots of information that you guys can use. We aim to empower you to take action and balance your hormones to take back this power. So that's exactly what we're going to do. Now a little bit about us. I'm Kirsty. You may have seen me. I'm from the gym. I'm a coach here at Strength and Motion Academy. It is my passion to deliver information to women to help them take power back for themselves. So I have my own program, Powerful, which works on women's training, nutrition and mindset to help them become awesome and powerful in themselves. Plus, I also did my sports science, exercise and health degree, so I've got quite a lot of science background that I'd like to share with you guys today. Nikiita, she's an awesome girl, that's why we've teamed up. She is studying naturopathy and she has her own story with her balance back to hormonal health, which was absolutely crazy, which she's going to go through in a minute. But that's given her a lot of background knowledge that she wants to share with other women and help them to take back control of their hormones. Now, to begin introducing what hormones are, we've all given you a sheet or a quiz, which hopefully you've all had a little chance to tick through. Now, what you may have guessed already is that all of them giving you a bit of a symptom picture or what may be happening in your body right now. So if you're finding that there's a cluster in a certain area, that's probably a big indicator that there's a bit of an issue with that area of your hormones. So it's a good chance to have a little look. Almost every woman I speak to, when I start coaching them, seems to have one little imbalance or another, and sometimes they're completely unaware that this is what's causing all their problems in their body. And I find if we're getting back this balance, it can be the biggest way to bring back that power. Now, while many of these symptoms may be common, as many of you have been ticking off, they're definitely not normal. We shouldn't be feeling an absolute crazy wreck every month with bloating and PMS. But it's so common that oftentimes we're making memes about it. So that's how common it is. Oftentimes we're getting mood swings and craziness, PMS, RIP, Game of Thrones. Bloating and digestive problems. A lot of them are caused by hormones. Feeling excessively emotional. I think we've all felt that at some stage, just having absolutely no idea why we're crying. A stubborn and annoying weight gain. Cravings for sugar, particularly and chocolate, like Elmo. And exhaustion and fatigue. A lot of us really feel these symptoms and think that they're an average, normal part of being a female, but they shouldn't be. We shouldn't be feeling like this every single month. So what we'll be going through are the categories that you've had a look at in your quiz and giving you a little bit more details to each area of these in your hormones. So if you can take back a little bit part of your life, it's going to help you a lot with your balance. Now, I've explained a little bit about hormonal imbalances and what might be happening in your body, but what actually are hormones? So this gets thrown around a lot, but most people don't actually know the biology of what they are. Now, the easiest way I can explain it is thinking of your hormones like thinking of your body like a symphony orchestra. So if you think of that beautiful orchestra, every single one of those musicians is a cell in your body doing a different thing, doing a different role. Now, if they're all playing in harmony, it sounds beautiful, and the music being presented is amazing. But if the violin's a bit off tune and the cello doesn't know what he's doing, then unfortunately the music is not going to be coming out as beautifully. So if we're thinking of our body as a symphony orchestra, what starts that and manages it is the conductor. So our conductor is our brain. So the conductor not only starts the symphony orchestra playing, he also takes back feedback with what's going on in the orchestra, gives a little bit of, fix it up over there, make sure that you're not stuffing up over there. Of course, if the whole thing is going absolutely haywire, then he's going to have a hard time. We have a gland in our brain that takes in the information that is coming from our body, so the stimuluses and the responses and what our body is saying to us, and also sends those information back to the body to make sure that our body is playing the roles that it should. So if you're thinking of our brain as the conductor and the symphony orchestra as our body, the cells, and the music being played as how we're presenting, hormones are actually the chemical signals that are telling the body what to do. So hormones are the little messengers. Hopefully that gives you a bit of an idea as to what might be happening in our beautiful musical bodies. Now, how do hormones actually work? So hormones are the little signals going out to tell your cells what to do. It's like tuning in to a radio. So think of your radio as like your cell. The antenna is the receptor. So every cell has a little lock and key mechanism, so the receptor being on the cell, and then the little lock bit is aligned with a hormone. So if you think of that being a little radio, the radio's here, the cell is ready to do something, ready to play music. The antenna is waiting to hear what's going on. If the signal coming past is the correct hormone, it'll tune in. It'll tune in, and then you'll start playing 94.5. If that's the wrong signal, you're going to get either static or the wrong radio station. Probably won't actually happen because the receptor's wrong, but nothing happens. So it's a good idea to think of your hormones like that. Now, the biggest players in women's health. So we've talked about hormones. There are a lot of hormones in your body relating to everything from digestion, reproduction, stress. The biggest three that we focus on are your sex hormones, which are in your ovaries and a little bit in your adrenals. So these are things like estrogen, progesterone, and testosterone. So I've had a little look on your form already and found that they are some of the biggest players in regards to symptoms. We've also got our stress hormones, or our adrenal hormones. This is primarily the hormone cortisol, which you may have heard of before. And then our metabolism hormones, or our thyroid. So thyroid gets thrown up a lot. There are a lot of hormones come out of the thyroid as well, but we're going to group them together as the thyroid hormones. Now, if you think of these three parts, the ovaries, the adrenals, and the thyroid as being a three-legged stool, they all relate very closely with each other to balance out your hormones. If one side of the stool is a little bit wobbly, you're going to have the wobbles, and if one is completely out of it, your stool's just going to fall over. So if we're thinking of our body like this, we want to try and focus on these three aspects, and that's exactly what we're going to cover today. Now, before we get started, I'd like to chat you, started the actual seminar, I'd like to chat to you a little bit about us. So Nikiita and I, we've known each other for many years, but we've both walked a different path. We both have different stories with our hormones that we'd like to share with you, and hopefully you can take out a little bit about that. I'll start with me, right first. This is me. Oops, that's my face. Alright, so my story comes with a lot of years of overworking, overthinking, and overtraining. I'm a bit of a type A personality, a bit of a perfectionist. I like to do things to the best, but unfortunately that kind of became my downfall. Over the years, I slowly started to gather up these symptoms, and I thought, I'll just keep working through them. I'll just keep going. I'll drink more coffee. I ended up exhausted. I had my menstrual cycle completely out of whack. I was anxious and tense all the time, and the biggest thing was my skin was terrible. So my skin has been my biggest problem, and ironically, the vanity of that is what actually saved me to start learning more about my body. So I thought I could just keep on going on with this crap happening in my body, and I was like, I'll just deal with it. It's probably something hormonal or related to my sex hormones. So what I did is I went to doctors, tried to figure out what was going on. they didn't really tell me much. They just told me to go on the pill or go on to some certain medications. In fact, at one time they told me I had PCOS and that I would go on metformin, which is a pretty hectic drug for insulin management. So I backed out of that because I was like, no, don't feel like doing that at all. So instead, I started going down, all right, do I go see someone else? I ignored it for a while, and I eventually went to see a functional doctor. He actually really helped me. So the way that he did it was very similar to what you guys have just done today. I had a bit of a questionnaire with lots and lots of symptom picture questions, and I went through and ticked off what was affecting me at the moment. And it turns out it wasn't really my sex hormones, it wasn't really my thyroid or my gut. They were all kind of staying at the same level. They were all a bit shit, but they were all at the same level. It was my adrenal hormones that were absolutely through the roof. So my cortisol level had been going so high for so long that my body had just started to shut itself down and try to manage with whatever it could, which I'll discuss in detail later about what that does to your body. So going from that, I actually got diagnosed with adrenal fatigue, which is a very complicated system that can start from very low level tiredness all the way to like your chronic fatigue where you can't get out of bed. I was somewhere in the middle because I was still managing life with coffee. The nectar of the gods. So I made it through that, but I started doing everything that he told me to help me balance out my adrenals. So I did reduce my coffee, I started working on meditation, my mindset, reducing stress in my life, and starting to reduce my cortisol levels. I also took some adaptogenic herbs, which again we'll talk about later. And eventually, my cortisol levels got so much better. My energy was much better, and my skin was the biggest thing that cleared up, which is what I was happiest about. It's funny how sometimes vanity can lead you down the best path to healing yourself. And now to this day, I feel amazing. So I'd love to share this story with you guys, and if it is affecting you, then I reckon it could be one thing that can help a lot of women out. Because when I started, I thought it was sex hormones, then I thought it was thyroid. I never even thought to look at adrenals because I was so obsessed with me getting through life with my stress. So a little bit of my face, that's kind of what it was for. That was actually a really good day because I just had a skin treatment. I used to get my peels done that would like pretty much peel my face off, pretty awful. And I was like, yeah, it's looking pretty good, let's take a photo. But it was not nice. And that was me just an average morning, I was tired, but I thought, hey, my skin looks good. So my skin is so much better than what it was. And it's my butt. Hello. That's me happy today. Alright, so give you a little bit of an idea about what I am, what I've been through, and also what I want to share with you guys today. So I'll be specialising in the cortisol and thyroid section. But now I'm going to hand over to a beautiful Nikiita, and she'll tell you her story, which is quite intense. Woo! I'll do that. Okay. Hello? Is this good?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. So hello everybody, my name is Nikiita, and like Kirsty mentioned before, I'm currently almost in my 4th year of studying naturopathy. So basically, my story starts at the age of 16. I started taking a pill at the age of 16 for contraceptive purposes. And then it wasn't actually until I was 21 years old I stopped taking the pill. The reason why I stopped taking the pill was because I just started naturopathy, and I had a lot of women around me telling me that, you know, you feel better when you stop taking the pill. And I just felt like I'd been on the pill for a fairly long time, so I just wanted to take a break. I didn't really think anything of this until about 2 to 3 months later, I started developing heart palpitations. So basically, the first time I experienced this, I was sitting at work, and all of a sudden I felt my heart just drop in my chest. And I felt all clammy, and I felt like I couldn't breathe properly. And it was super scary for me, but I thought maybe I just had too much coffee, or maybe I had overtrained that week or something. So I brushed it off, and I didn't think anything about it. And then it wasn't until a couple of weeks, or actually the following days, I started getting these heart palpitations more and more. And they were super scary, so I went and talked to my doctor, and my doctor just said, don't worry about it. The type of heart palpitations you're getting, they're pretty normal, and there was nothing to worry about. So I thought, cool, maybe I'm just overdoing it on the coffee. So I started actually, after this, developing some anxiety over these heart palpitations because they were happening more and more regularly, and anything that's happening with your heart is a little bit, it's a bit worrying. So I started developing anxiety over this. I then started developing anxiety just in general, so I was anxious to talk to people, I was anxious to just
do random things that I wouldn't usually be anxious about. Yeah, so that was really unusual for me, but I had no idea what was going on at the time. So that was in December. Then it wasn't until about March, it was actually Joel's birthday, and we went out for breakfast that morning, and it was a lovely breakfast and everything. We came home, Joel went off to work, and I was lying in bed by myself, and then I started getting a ringing in my ears. Next minute, I started getting a clammy feeling, and I started actually almost passing in and out of consciousness, which was super scary for me, and I was actually at home by myself. So I called up my mom, called up my best friend, and I asked them to take me to hospital because I had no idea what was going on. I thought maybe my heart was playing up or something. So in the back of the car, I was passing in and out of consciousness, like this is it, I have no idea what's going on with me. Went to hospital, they did tests, and they said maybe I just hadn't had enough electrolytes for the day. So I was like, cool, I need to drink more water, have more electrolytes, and I was happy with that. So I started taking more electrolytes, thinking I'd be fine afterwards, and yeah, I wasn't. So the next day we actually flew to Melbourne, and we were having dinner with my nan and Joel that evening. It was a delicious dinner, but I couldn't enjoy it all because I was, once again, passing out at the dinner table. So I asked them if we could go home, and on our walk back to our hotel, my legs actually started to look super jelly, and I felt like I couldn't walk any further, so I told my nan and Joel once again to take me to hospital because I was just feeling super weird. I'd been drinking my electrolytes and nothing was working, and my legs were literally giving out on me. So went to hospital, they did all the tests, they did ECG, blood tests, they even radiographed my chest cavity to see if anything was going on with my heart as well. And yeah, apparently they thought maybe I just had a virus that wasn't showing up on the blood test. They couldn't really figure out what was going on, which is quite common. So I thought, yeah, maybe I did have a virus, but I wasn't sold on that, but we left it at that. A few days later, in Melbourne still, Joel and I were about to go to sleep in the hotel room, and I started shaking uncontrollably. Just shaking, I couldn't stop myself from shaking. Then I started passing in and out of consciousness again. My whole left arm was going numb, so I thought I'm definitely having a heart attack this time. It was the scariest moment of my life. I literally thought I was going to die. But I just didn't even go to hospital because they hadn't helped me in the past, so there was no point even going. So I just laid in bed shaking and crying until I eventually fell asleep, which was very, very traumatic for me. So yeah, that was pretty scary. Still had no idea what was going on. Then over the next few months, I started developing chronic headaches. So this literally felt like someone had got a rubber band around my head and pulled it super tight. And I would wake up in the morning like this and go to bed like this, and they would last for months and months and months. There was definitely something wrong with me. Couldn't figure out what it was. During this time, I also gained fat on my legs and my hips. We found this out because Joel and I usually do skin folds every now and again to measure like where our fat's being distributed. And even though I was the skinniest I've ever been, I had the most fat on my legs I ever had, which was really unusual for me because I don't usually store much fat on my legs. So I was like, wow, something's definitely going on. Yeah, so that picture there actually is a good representation. So the top picture, that was a few months after this. But basically that cream there, it blocks what's called estrogen. So basically after using this cream, I had that result, which was an indication that yes, it was actually hormones that was responsible for me gaining weight in those areas. So that's what that picture represents there. Yeah, so during this time I also got really bad hay fever, really bad eczema, no libido whatsoever, and my cycles were completely irregular. This is what that's still not what it is. Sorry. Okay, I'll just look up there because the computer's not working. So anyway, this was really hard for me. I found out my lifestyle became really restricted. I couldn't drink alcohol, couldn't drink coffee. It would make my anxiety way worse. I basically didn't do much unless I felt really, really good that day. Then I could go out, but most days I would just stay at home because it was just too much to even talk to people because I had a throbbing headache and anxiety. It was just a mess. I started thinking that maybe it was possibly a hormonal issue, something to do with coming off the pill. So I went to my doctor, and my doctor did a series of blood tests on me, and also a Holter monitor, which is where you wear something to measure your heart rate for a whole day. You walk around with it and stuff. And of course, the hormonal test came back normal and my heart was fine, which was relieving. And then the doctor just told me that I simply had anxiety. So the doctor said, look, I think you just have anxiety. That was really, really weird for me because I'd never been an anxious person ever, and all of a sudden I just have anxiety. So I thought maybe something was wrong with my head or something. And yeah, I felt really misunderstood after this and really lost because my hormones were fine, so what else could it be? Anyway, it wasn't until June I was lucky enough that my friend tagged me in a podcast on Facebook. The podcast was called Periods They Aren't Black and White, and it was actually by NTP Science, which is the supplement company we actually sell here now. And basically in this podcast, they listed every single thing that I'd been through, why I was going through it. I related it all back to the pill. And for the first time ever, I felt like someone actually finally knew what the hell was going on with me. So this gave me so much relief. And actually, luckily enough, the weekend after, they were doing a seminar here in Perth, which is perfect timing. So I went to that seminar, ended up buying 2 different hormone balancing supplements and a cortisol balancing supplement. The cortisol balancing supplement worked almost immediately. Within half an hour of taking it, I finally felt like I could relax. I felt the anxiety disappear. I didn't have panic attacks anymore. It was literally the most wonderful thing I ever felt for a long, long time. And then slowly but surely, the hormonal symptoms started to go away. During this time, I also went to a naturopath, and the naturopath did a saliva test on my hormones at a different time in my cycle. And she confirmed that, yes, I in fact did have hormonal imbalances. My estrogen was too high, and my progesterone and my testosterone was too low. So this was so relieving for me because it was like, okay, I wasn't actually going crazy. My hormones are actually out of whack. So now I'm pretty much 100% better, probably even better than I went through when I went through all that stuff. I'm now not on the pill either, so I've got a normal healthy cycle, which is great for me. I really actually enjoy getting my period every month, which sounds weird, but yeah, I'm a weirdo like that. So I love hormones, and that's why I love hormones. And yeah, basically this whole experience was really scary for me, and I just feel like no woman should have to go through what I've been through without getting the help or the guidance they deserve. So that is why I'm so passionate about hormones now. So that's my story. Now we'll get on to things. So we're going
Sorry. Did you have that because you stopped the pill? So
Yes.
the pill regulated your hormones, and then when you stopped it, it all went.
Yeah, basically I had like a crazy bounce back of like really high estrogen, and the pill can suppress your testosterone, and after that I had no testosterone as well. So there's a few things there. My cortisol was also out of whack because the pill does weird things to that. So yeah, it was from stopping the pill through a few different mechanisms, which I can talk to you one-on-one about if you're super interested in them. Yeah, that's okay. So we're going to go through the hormones one by one now. So firstly we're going to talk about estrogen. Yes?
Sorry, I just have a question. So, did you say that you had bloods done and they came back normal for your hormones?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah, so I had bloods done by the doctors, but they actually didn't test it on a good time of my cycle, so the hormonal results were invalid anyways, because doctors don't always know when to actually test you. So then when I got it done by the naturopath, it was done at the proper time of my cycle. It was also done through the saliva method, which doesn't make much of a difference, but sometimes it does. And yeah, that came back with different results. Yeah. So I'm going to start with estrogen. So estrogen is, as a female, it's one of our dominant sex hormones. Males have it as well, but they have it in much lower amounts. Estrogen does a lot of wonderful things for our bodies. So it develops our secondary sexual characteristics, such as growing our breasts. It also grows and matures our ovaries. It's also involved in bone development. It's involved in growing our uterine lining if we're going to get pregnant. It's involved in our mood regulation, our libido, and lots of other things you can see up here. It's really good for our cardiovascular system. So estrogen is amazing, but the problem is when we either have too much of it or too little of it. Okay, so high estrogen symptoms include heavy or clotty periods. So estrogen basically grows things. So estrogen is responsible for growing our uterine lining, and that's what we shed every time we have a period. So the more estrogen we have, the more that uterine lining grows, and the heavier our periods might become, and the more painful they might become. This also comes with pain. So that's why we can get painful periods with excess estrogen. We also get weight gain, like I mentioned. We can get it on our hips, our butt, our lower abdomen, and under our arms. This is because we have more estrogen receptors in those areas. So if we are going to gain fat, there will be the areas that we do gain fat. It can also cause headaches. So estrogen also makes our blood really thick and sticky. That's why even taking the pill can cause clotting sometimes. So if we have this thick and sticky blood running through our head, this can cause headaches because our blood vessels have to dilate to respond to this thick and sticky blood, and then that pushes against our skull. So that's why you can get those throbbing headaches, because it's the blood, the thick and sticky blood that's going through our brains. Cellulite as well, that goes along with the weight gain. We can get tender breasts, we can get irritability and mood swings, so too much estrogen can make you overthink things. Bloating and fluid retention, so estrogen is really, really good at holding onto water. It holds onto water in our skin, makes our skin nice and plump and youthful, but also it can hold onto water in our abdomen, so that's why we get that premenstrual bloating. So just think of estrogen, holds onto water, makes things really sticky, and it grows things. And then also thyroid and endometriosis, they're two conditions that have a estrogen dominant component to them. But I'm not going to go too much into them because they're very, they've got a lot more to them than just that. Okay, so why we might have these high estrogen, So number one is excess fat mass. So if we are carrying a little bit of extra fat, all of those fat cells actually produce their own estrogen as well as our ovaries. So the more fat you have, the more estrogen you're producing, and so then you have more circulating estrogen as well. Plastics. Plastics is probably one of my least favorite things in this whole entire world, for many, many reasons. But for this reason, basically, plastics, when consumed into the body, the chemical structure of plastic is identical to the chemical structure of estrogen. So when you consume this through plastic water bottles, or our food is wrapped in plastic all the time, this plastic that goes into our body actually acts as estrogen in our body, so it contributes to the overall estrogenic load. Same with cosmetics, household cleaning products, and pesticides and fertilizers. All of these things also act like estrogen in our bodies. So even though we might not be producing more estrogen, we're having things that are still acting as estrogen, and it's way more dangerous, worse form of estrogen as well. So all of those things are not good if you are experiencing these high estrogen symptoms. The oral contraceptive pill, if you are experiencing these symptoms and you are on the pill, you might want to have a look at that, simply because the pill is synthetic estrogen, so you're literally consuming synthetic estrogen every morning. So if you've got those symptoms, you might want to have a look at that. Alcohol. Alcohol is a massive one. So I think it's, if you have 2 or more standard drinks per day, it actually doubles your estrogen load, that's big. So there's a few other mechanisms. Alcohol is not good for our estrogen, but the biggest one is it takes up our liver. So instead of our liver detoxifying the estrogen and getting it out like it normally would, instead it's focused on getting the alcohol out, because alcohol is way, way more toxic for our body. So the liver focuses on what's more toxic before it focuses on our own hormones. So then we get a build-up of our own estrogen. Same with coffee, it's a similar thing. If you're having 1 coffee a day, not too bad, but if you're having 2, 3, 4, 5, then this can, I think it doubles your estrogen as well. It's something quite significant. So just be aware of it. Medication works in a similar way. You're taking lots of medication that also uses up your liver's resources. And the MTHFR gene, this is a gene that some women have, and basically you don't detoxify estrogen as well as women who don't have this gene would, because you need specific micronutrients to be able to detoxify this estrogen better. So it's quite complex, but that's a brief explanation. Okay, so ways to lower estrogen. Firstly, we want to cut out the causes. Because even you can do whatever you want, but if you're still doing anything on this list, then you're still contributing to that excess estrogen. So that's number one, cut out the causes. Also, cut out your chemical cosmetic products. I know this can be hard, but they're not good for you. I've got 2 links on there. The first link is basically you can type in whatever cosmetics you use into this website, and it'll tell you how toxic they are for you from a scale of 1 to 10. So 10 being really toxic, 1 being really good for you. I think we're sending out this the slideshow to everyone after this, so everyone will have a copy of these links. So then you go on there, type your stuff in, and you feel like, oh, this one's really bad for me, chuck it out, and keep the stuff that's better for you on there. And then the second link, that's just an Australian distributor of all natural products. So they've got everything, cosmetics, conditioner, shampoo, household cleaning products, everything on there, and they're all natural from that website. So then next step is love your liver. So when it comes to detoxifying estrogen, it's really important to look after your liver because that's what actually does the detoxification. So ways we can do this is by eating what's known as cruciferous vegetables. That's all these vegetables here. So we have broccoli, Brussels sprouts, kale, cauliflower, cabbage. Try to eat as much as you can in your diet because all these vegetables actually help detoxify estrogen through your liver in a really healthy way. Also, you can eat things such as garlic and onion. They provide sulfur for our liver, which is an amino acid that our liver needs to detoxify hormones, and also really good quality protein. Once again, this provides amino acids to our liver, which helps us detoxify that estrogen. So also, you know, don't drink alcohol, coffee, all these things that build up in your liver, better to stay away from because that's not loving your liver. Drink lots of water as well. Then the next step is to fix your gut. So after the estrogen goes through your liver, it then goes through into your small intestine to be excreted into the toilet. So if you're not going to the toilet for a bowel motion at least once a day, then you're not getting rid of that estrogen. So that estrogen will actually sit in your bowels waiting to be excreted, but if you're not going to the toilet, then it'll actually get reabsorbed back into our circulation, and then the liver might as well not have even detoxified anything because it's now back in our circulation, it has to go all again. So that's why having a bowel movement at least once a day is super, super important to actually get rid of the estrogen. So you can do this by eating at least 25 grams of fiber daily, drinking lots of water. Some people might need probiotics. We also have a product here called Gut Right. Both of these help regulate your bowel movements, and they can help with if you have like specific digestive disorders and stuff. And then there's something called calcium D-glucarate. Basically, that's something that you take. It's just a powder, and it makes it so that estrogen doesn't get recirculated. It makes it recirculate less, sort of thing. It's quite complex, but I won't go into it. But it is up there if you do want to look into it. B vitamins is the next thing. Super important. B vitamins is what our liver uses to detoxify everything in our bodies. So if you're deficient in B vitamins, then you're not going to be detoxifying anything to a good standard. So you can get it from these foods that I've listed, but you can also take a good quality multivitamin. Well, then we do have one here called multi-food, which is like a natural multivitamin, which is also really great. We also have estrogen detoxification supplements. So these supplements are really, really good if you know you have estrogen issues and you want to specifically target those estrogen issues. Of course, you can't just do the supplements without doing the lifestyle stuff as well. You could be doing the supplements, but if you're drinking from a plastic water bottle every day, you know, you're sort of not really targeting it as well as you could be. But yeah, they're really, really good. They have broccoli, sprouts, and a few other herbs in it that just really make sure that estrogen is getting cleared out. We actually sell two here, Alpha Venus and Alpha Prime, which we can speak about later if you're interested. And lastly, reduce sugar, wheat, and dairy. So I know these are all the fun things. However, these all cause what's called inflammation in the body. So inflammation is basically, say if you were to get a splinter and it went all red and puffy, that's a process of inflammation, but that's responding to an acute injury. So that's fine because that helps our body heal. But if we have this inflammatory process in our bodies all the time, it actually causes chronic diseases. So things such as sugar, wheat, and dairy, they actually cause what's called chronic inflammation. And then we actually get more estrogen in our body. So if you are struggling with estrogen dominance, you might want to have a look at how much sugar, wheat, or dairy you are consuming. Okay, cool. So that's high estrogen. Now we're going to go into low estrogen. So many women with low estrogen and with night sweats may report it looking something like this. Other symptoms that you may get with low estrogen include memory loss, periods fewer than 3 days long, these night sweats as well as hot flushes, Aching joints, dry skin. So remember I said estrogen holds onto water in our skin, so when we actually get low estrogen, we start losing the water and the plumpness of our skin, and we also might start seeing like fine lines and wrinkles because we're actually losing that hydration that estrogen provided us. Same with the vagina, so you can get vaginal dryness as well. A low libido, because estrogen actually plays a role in libido, and headaches. So you can get headaches with high estrogen and you get headaches with low estrogen. Yeah, just keep that in mind. Okay, so reasons why we might have low estrogen. Number one is of course menopause. As we grow older, we're not meant to be producing as much sex hormones anymore because we're not meant to be reproducing, so that's just a normal part of life. Low body fat, so if you have super low body fat, the body goes into survival mode, so it's not really actually interested in reproducing because it's too busy trying to survive because its fat stores are so low, it thinks it's starving. So reproduction and producing estrogen and ovulating is the last thing it cares about. Low dietary fat. Every single one of our hormones, the backbone of our hormones is fat. So without this fat molecule, you won't be able to make your hormones. So if you're not having much fat in your diet, good quality fat, you might not actually be able to produce the hormones that you want. And also newly postpartum. So if you've just had a baby, all of your hormones drop quite rapidly, and that's completely normal. Okay, so ways that we can approach this low estrogen. So number one, increase your dietary fat. If you do feel like you're not having enough, have more, but have good quality fats. So we want things like avocados, coconut oil, nuts and seeds, stuff like that. Flax seeds as well. Flax seeds are really cool. Basically, flax seeds contain a similar, flax seeds are sort of like plastic, but they're actually good for you. So flax seeds, when you have them in your body, they turn into, well, they mimic what is the same compound as estrogen, but it's actually a really healthy version of it. So plastics, when they go into your body, they also mimic estrogen, but they exert like a really strong, like toxic effect on our body. Whereas when we have flax seeds, it's like a more mild estrogenic effect. So, and it's actually healthy for you. But yeah, they mimic the same compound as estrogen, and they're called phytoestrogens, whereas plastics are called xenoestrogens. So phytoestrogens are healthy, xenoestrogens not so healthy. Maca as well. Maca, they don't know how maca actually works just yet, but they believe that it works something to do with the brain. But yeah, it does help modulate estrogen levels, but I'm not actually sure how it does do that. Vitamin E, magnesium, really important in producing estrogen. Also vitamin E helps with those night sweats a lot. Black cohosh. Black cohosh is a really cool herb. It's great. It's great for menopause, and it helps a lot with those mood swings and those night sweats and hot flushes. It's a really, really cool herb, and it does increase estrogen as well. And also, if you're not menopausal and you're under the age of 40 and you don't feel like you have too low body fat or anything, you might want to test for what's called primary ovarian insufficiency. Basically, this is just a condition where you have stopped you stop ovulating for some reason, and it's usually autoimmune or because you're taking some sort of sometimes chemotherapy or something like that. So yeah, it could be something else you look into if you don't have any of these causes. Okay, cool. So that's estrogen done. So now we're going to talk about progesterone. So basically progesterone, a lot of women's hormone specialists will refer to progesterone as the superwoman hormone because it's that good for us. But often women don't get enough of it. So progesterone can do some pretty amazing things for our bodies, such as it maintains our uterine lining when we're pregnant. It's a strong antidepressant. It increases our metabolism. It uses fat for energy. It's libido boosting. It regulates blood sugar. It promotes sleep, and it protects from things such as endometrial and breast cancer. So it is a really, really amazing hormone, but the problem is we usually do not get enough of it. So how do we make progesterone? So we make progesterone through an event called ovulation. So I'm sure everyone here has probably heard of ovulation before, but I'm just going to explain what it is exactly. So here we have days 1 to 28 of a menstrual cycle. Menstrual cycles don't always have to be 28 days long. They can be anywhere from 28 to 35 days long. And basically, in the first 5 to 7 days, we have a period. And then our estrogen rises. So our estrogen is the pink line here. So our estrogen rises for the first half of our cycle. That's called the follicular phase, if anyone's interested. And then it peaks. And then after that peak, that triggers what's called ovulation. Now, ovulation can happen from anywhere from days 14 till about 21. And then the green line, which is progesterone, actually becomes our dominant sex hormone for the second half of our cycle, known as the luteal phase. So, yeah. So what ovulation actually is, though, is if you look over here, this is actually a picture of an ovary. And if you see those white circles up the top of it, that's a follicle. And inside the follicle, we have what is known as an oocyte, or our egg. So for the first 14 days, that follicle develops. And then it gets around here at around day 14, and that egg actually bursts out of the follicle and starts traveling down the fallopian tube, which is called ovulation. So anywhere from day 14 to 21, like I mentioned. After this, we have some blood clots, a blood clot left over, which quickly turns into what's known as the corpus luteum. Now, you don't have to remember that name, but what's important about that is this corpus luteum is actually what is responsible for producing our progesterone. So if we don't have ovulation, we don't have the corpus luteum, and then we don't get any progesterone for that cycle at all. So that's why ovulation is super important when it comes to making this nice healthy progesterone. Okay, so how do I know if I have ovulated? So a good way of knowing is, firstly, if you do have a regular cycle. This isn't a definite indication that you have ovulated, but it is a rough indication that you might be ovulating. But it's not definite, but it's, yeah. And then fertile mucus. So fertile mucus is cervical mucus that we might see in our underwear when we go to the toilet. And basically, when it's super fertile, it should look like egg white if we put it between our fingers, like up there, and that means that we're about to ovulate. It doesn't mean that our body was necessarily successful in ovulating, but it means it was preparing to ovulate. So fertile mucus is a little bit of a better sign that we are about to ovulate, but it's not 100% guaranteed that we have ovulated. Next, we have a temperature rise. So the temperature rise and the positive urine ovulation stick, these are definite ways of knowing if we have ovulated. So with a temperature rise, basically, if a woman was to measure their basal metabolic temp, if they were to get up every morning and measure their temperature, for the first half of their cycle, it should be sitting around 36.3, 36.4, and then after they've ovulated, their temperature should actually jump by at least 0.3 or 0.4 of a degree. If we see this rise in temperature, it means that we have in fact ovulated, because like I mentioned, progesterone increases our metabolism, and our metabolism increases our temperature. So this is a really great way of knowing if you have ovulated. It's also a really great way of seeing how well you have ovulated. So the higher the temperatures and the longer these temperatures are raised for, the better you may have ovulated, because you can see the progesterone's hanging around and it's working your metabolism. And yeah, it's a really great thing for most women to do. Just to know that you are actually ovulating. Also, the positive urine ovulation stick, basically, it's just a stick that measures if you have ovulated. You just use your urine for that. Okay, so reasons why we might not be ovulating, or reasons why we might have low progesterone. So number one is inflammation again. So things like dairy, gluten, sugar, alcohol, and smoking, all of these things cause that inflammatory state in our body, and that inflammation can actually interrupt with our ovulation. Next, we have deficiencies such as zinc, selenium, magnesium, or vitamin D. You can get your vitamin D tested in a blood test by your doctors. And with the zinc, selenium, magnesium, we just don't have much of this in our diet. So we actually have a supplement here called ZMST. It has zinc, selenium, magnesium, and taurine in it. I take it every single day just because I know I do not get enough of this from my diet. So if you are experiencing low progesterone issues, you might as well cover all bases. Also, stress and undereating. This is the biggest reason why a woman might not ovulate. Their bodies have gone into survival mode instead of reproduction mode. So all the body is using all of its minerals and its resources in surviving, and it's not really worried about reproducing at all. So therefore, ovulation doesn't happen, and then we don't get progesterone. Perimenopause, it's also very normal going into menopause that you may start ovulating a lot less. This is just the natural part of life. and also a condition called Polycystic Ovarian Syndrome. Basically, this is a syndrome I'm going to talk about in a bit, but it involves high testosterone and infrequent ovulating. Okay, so symptoms of low progesterone. So you may get mid-cycle or premenstrual spotting, PMS, premenstrual syndrome. You may experience headaches or migraines around your period, painful or swollen breasts before your period, painful or heavy periods, agitated or weeping before your period. So like I said, progesterone acts as like a natural antidepressant. So if we don't have enough progesterone there, we might be feeling really sad and a little bit weepy. You may get restless legs at night, and also you may have difficulty getting pregnant. I think there's also a few more symptoms on your little quiz that you've done. So ways that we can increase this progesterone. Number one, reduce our stress. So Kirsty's actually going to go into this in a bit, ways that we can reduce our stress and our cortisol. But basically, if we're stressing too much, like I mentioned, we're not going to be ovulating. We also want to reduce all those inflammatory foods and things I was talking about. And then, yeah, it's good to supplement with magnesium, zinc, selenium, and vitamin D, especially if you know you're low in them. And then when it comes to premenstrual syndrome, there's actually one thing that has had a lot of studies done on it to actually help with premenstrual syndrome, and that's vitamin B6. It's had amazing results in many studies, but they actually still don't know how it works exactly. But yeah, if you are having PMS on a regular occasion, maybe look at having a good quality vitamin B6 supplement. And lastly, there's a beautiful plant called Vitex. That's this plant here. It's also in one of our products called Alpha Venus. And basically, Vitex helps your body ovulate if it's not ovulating, basically. Unless you have Polycystic Ovarian Syndrome, then you might want to do other treatment for that. But if you're just not ovulating for any of these other reasons, Vitex is a beautiful herb that will help you ovulate. Testosterone. Sorry? Oh man. Alright, so testosterone. This girl has a lot of testosterone, not really. So, this is what a lot of testosterone actually looks like. So, think of like a teenage pubescent boy. They've got oily skin, they've got acne, especially on the jaw. You might be growing hair on places that men would usually grow hair, so not just the hair on the top of the lip or anything like that, but like growing hair on your chin and on your abdomen and possibly even your chest. That's a good indication that you might have high testosterone, and that's called hirsutism. You might be losing hair on your head, and also you might be having irregular or super long cycles that are longer than 35 days. So all of these things are fairly good indication that you may have high testosterone. Okay, so reasons why we might have this high testosterone. So like I mentioned, there's a condition called Polycystic Ovarian Syndrome. Basically, this syndrome involves high testosterone, and it also involves, not always, but all the time, involves cysts building up on your ovary, and usually the woman will not be ovulating. So, the number one reason why a woman will have Polycystic Ovarian Syndrome is usually what's known as insulin resistance. So does anyone here know what insulin does, or has anyone heard of insulin? You can just raise your hand if you have heard of insulin. Yeah, some people. Cool. Okay, so basically I'm just going to explain it really quickly. So insulin is that key up there, but insulin basically works on our cell and allows our blood sugar from our bloodstream to get into our cell to be used as energy. So it basically, it unlocks that little glucose channel, which is our blood sugar channel, and it allows those blood sugar molecules to get inside of our cell. So it responds to when we eat carbohydrates most of the time, and it allows that carbohydrate to be used as energy in our cells. So the problem with this is, for many reasons, to do with the modern day lifestyle, stress, smoking, and eating lots of sugar and carbohydrates, people can develop what's known as insulin resistance. So basically, during this, because your cells aren't responding to insulin as well as they should be, the body starts producing more and more insulin to actually get that blood sugar into the cell. So the reason why this causes Polycystic Ovarian Syndrome is because this high amount of insulin that's floating around in our bloodstream actually stops the process of ovulation, which results in a buildup of testosterone. So that's the first reason, and that's a good a good place to start targeting if you do have polycystic ovarian syndrome. The second reason why we might get polycystic ovarian syndrome is post-pill rebound. So if you've been on the oral contraceptive pill, specifically Yaz or Diane 35, both of these pills suppress your testosterone whilst you're on them. So when you do stop them, your body might have like a rebound effect and start producing way more testosterone than it needs to, and then you might get what's called polycystic ovarian syndrome, and you might have it for a few years and then it might fade away, or it could set you off into this pattern of having polycystic ovarian syndrome for a long period of time until you do something about it. And then lastly, inflammation again. So if you are experiencing like joint pain or constant headaches or eczema or fatigue, it might be a signal that your body is chronically inflamed because of something that you're doing or a few other reasons, but this might be contributing to polycystic ovarian syndrome as well. Other reasons we might have high testosterone include some psychiatric medications and also a condition called congenital adrenal hyperplasia. It's quite uncommon, but it's just a genetic disorder that some people get that makes your adrenals produce high amounts of testosterone. You probably know if you do have that, but I've just put it up there. So, what can we do about this high testosterone? So, firstly, get your hormones tested. There's a few different hormones that your doctor should be testing, and then once they do, you can sort of have a better idea of what is happening with your body, not just if you've got high testosterone, but there's a few other things. Sometimes doctors won't have a good close-up look at these blood tests, so I recommend maybe taking it to a naturopath or someone else who actually can read these blood tests a little bit more in depth and they can tell you a little bit more of a story about what's actually going on with your body. So, we want to correct insulin resistance. So how do we know if we have insulin resistance? Firstly, there's what's called apple-shaped obesity. So basically that's when we start gaining weight around that midsection like that. The way we can tell if we have this apple-shaped obesity is if we measure our waist, it should be less than half of how tall we are. So if it's more than half of how tall we are, it's a good indication that we're gaining weight in that section, and that's probably because we have too much insulin. Other ways we can test if we're insulin resistant is you can test, do a fasting insulin test, or there's a few other insulin tests. If you're interested, I can talk to you about it afterwards, but I won't go into that now. And then once you know that it is in fact insulin resistance that you're suffering with, then first step is quitting sugar. So although it sucks, if you do have polycystic ovarian syndrome, then your body is not equipped to be eating sugar currently because it doesn't have good mechanisms to use it for energy. So you just have to, it's hard, but you have to quit the sugar for at least 3 to 6 months to see any results, because if you really, really care about what's going on with your hormones, you're going to have to do something like this to see if it helps you. So yeah, that's number one.
Eat handmade drinks.
Yeah, no sugar. Yeah, that makes it a lot easier.
Seriously, Nikki eats a lot of it, yeah.
Next, carbohydrate backloading. So basically, that involves you don't eat carbohydrates for the whole day. So you can start by just not having carbohydrates for your breakfast, and then increase it to not having carbohydrates for your breakfast and lunch. And then during the evenings, you can eat your carbohydrates, like some starchy sort of potatoes or rice. But basically this just leaves our body in a state of insulin sensitivity for a longer time during the day. So if you are interested in this method, I can talk to you about afterwards, but I don't have enough time to go into it in depth at the moment. Exercise is really important. Strength training, the more muscle we have, the more insulin sensitivity we have. So muscle is really good for increasing your insulin sensitivity. And also things like magnesium and inositol. I won't go into the mechanism, but basically this also makes your cells more responsive to insulin, especially inositol. That's had many, many studies done with polycystic ovarian syndrome, and it has really great results. Also, 2 herbs known as licorice and peony. Both of these herbs just reduce testosterone overall. So these are great herbs for reducing testosterone, but also if you have high blood pressure, please be careful with the licorice. And also, yeah, sometimes it is good to do this with a naturopath or someone who can overlook your results and sort of change your dosages as you go. Okay, so now we're going to go into low testosterone. So this is actually what I was suffering with after I stopped the pill, amongst other imbalances. But basically, Low testosterone, symptoms you may be experiencing include a low libido. Testosterone is very involved in libido for both men and women. You might be having depression or mood swings. You might have no motivation, unable to gain any muscle, weight gain, difficulty to orgasm, and anxiety or panic attacks. So the causes of this, number one, you might be on the pill or have just finished the pill, like me. Basically, the pill increases a certain chemical in your liver, and then this chemical goes out into your body and it binds up all of your testosterone and makes it inactive. So that's one thing that can happen. Also low dietary fats, like I mentioned. All of our hormones are made out of fat, so if we're not having enough fats, we might not be producing testosterone. Perimenopause, naturally we just stop making a lot of our sex hormones as we get a little bit older. Stress is a big one. Instead of our resources going into lovely hormones like testosterone, it's actually going into cortisol instead. And then also estrogen dominance. So with estrogen dominance, you might have good amounts of testosterone, but if your estrogen is up here and your testosterone is normal, still the relative amount between them makes it feel like testosterone is really low, just because you have a lot of estrogen. So you might experience those low testosterone symptoms even though it's normal. It's just because your estrogen is making it seem a lot worse. Okay, so ways we can increase testosterone. Number one, the biggest one is reduce your stress and reduce your cortisol. Kirsty's going to talk about that in a moment. Strength training, really important. The more muscle we have, the more testosterone we produce. Antioxidant-rich foods and healthy fats, both of these things help testosterone be created in our ovaries. So these are like a lot of nice antioxidant-rich foods you can see here, all the really colourful, pretty ones. Vitamin D, so vitamin D also increases not progesterone, testosterone. And we have a supplement here called Alpha Prime. Now, Alpha Prime is one of the only supplements on the market that actually can increase testosterone in women. There's a lot of ones on the market that increase testosterone in men, but it actually doesn't work the same in our bodies as it does for men. So this has a herb in it that increases testosterone in a few different ways, and it's really, really cool. So it's good to have a look at. Okay, cool.
And based on that, if you guys are experiencing any symptoms that Nikki's gone through, make sure you make a note of them and really put them down, because she's covered so many areas. And as we said at the start, women are very complicated creatures. So you're wanting to look into it, putting down your symptoms and knowing what's going on, and then speaking to your experts or your naturopaths is a really good idea. Is that working?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, seemed decent. Just.
Alright. Back on the stage again. Alright, so Nikki's covered most of the sex hormones. So they're that first leg of the three-legged stool we were talking about. The second one that we on the stool is cortisol. So cortisol is our primary stress hormone. And as Nikki said, it is related to a lot of the balances in our sex hormones, massively. So cortisol is made in the adrenal glands. They're little walnut-shaped glands that are just above your kidneys. So you may have felt it when you're releasing stress, as if you've had that little jump that the boys do to me all the time. Your body releases cortisol and adrenaline. Cortisol is necessary in the body for regulation. So before we demonize it, it is very important for many things, such as our blood sugar regulation, salt and water balance, blood pressure, and inflammation. So like everything we're talking about, there is a Goldilocks rule for almost every hormone. We need to have a certain level to be healthy. Too much or too little can throw us out of balance.
Just put it like a little bit closer. Yeah. Focus.
Is that better?
Yeah, way better.
But cortisol is released when we experience stress. So it can be released when we have acute stress, when something shocks you or startles you, or a tiger is chasing you, and also chronic stress. So if you're long-term stressed about something, then that is another way that it is released. Again, it's important, but not too much. Now, one thing I'd really like to talk about in the body is the fight or flight and rest and digest responses. So our body has what's called an autonomic nervous system. So this is pretty much our way that we're surviving or reproducing. I call them the thrive and survive mechanisms. Now, your sympathetic nervous system is your fight or flight response. So this is exactly what's happening when your tiger is chasing you, like this bad guy here. You want to survive. So you're ready for danger. Your heart rate increases, your breathing comes up into your chest, and your body doesn't shuttle blood to areas like your digestion and your reproductive system, because they're not important when you're about to die. It goes to your muscles and your body to make sure you can run and hide and go anywhere you can. So that's why it's really important to understand that a lot of people are often in fight or flight a lot of the time. Conversely, our rest and digest mode, which is the other side of the autonomic nervous system, is when it flips over into rest and digest. So this is parasympathetic, and this is your thrive response. So in this state, your breathing is deeper, it's slower, your body is able to repair and recover, so you're actually able to regenerate when something has injured you. Blood flow goes to your reproductive and your digestive systems to make sure that you're sending the right nutrients around your body. So pretty much to reproduce and eat and relax, your body needs to be in this rest and digest state when blood's going to the right areas. And if it is in fight or flight, you're not going to be getting those benefits. Now, where we go a bit wrong is when we are releasing cortisol at an acute state, it's fine. But when it's chronic and long-term, that's when we start to stick in this fight or flight state a lot of the day. And that's what causes a lot of our issues. Now, a normal cortisol pattern, so as I said, cortisol is still very useful in the body, it's necessary. It should start in the morning and have a nice big spike that gets us up in the morning, starts us walking around, getting awake. Then it slowly descends until the evening when it drops. This is a healthy, happy cycle. And of course, along the day, your body can experience little acute stresses, like if the tiger goes jump out at you, you're fine. So you can run and escape, but then it quickly returns back to that happy, healthy cortisol level. So in this state, you sleep and recover well, you're able to deal with the stress and return to normal cortisol levels pretty quickly. That isn't an optimal situation. Unfortunately, as I have experienced, and probably many other women, and men too, cortisol affects men as well, it is not so much that way. What can happen is you get what's called elevated cortisol. So this happens if you are experiencing long periods of stress, or you yourself are stressing through long periods. As you can see, this elevates the curve, so it's still the same curve, but it spikes higher in the morning than what it would normally, and then it stays high throughout the day, and at night it dips down and doesn't actually get into that nice low state for you to rest. So this is the initial state of elevated cortisol. You tend to feel wide but tired in this state, so you're going in fight or flight mode, but you're exhausted at the same time because you're starting to burn out those stores of energy. You tend to start getting a little bit of weight gain, especially around your stomach. Cortisol tends to shuttle body fat to your internal organs. You feel awake before bed, but exhausted when you wake up. It starts affecting your digestion and starting to give you cravings. So generally, you probably know this before when you get like the pre-nerve shits. Your bodies don't handle very well to stress, and your digestion just goes absolutely out the door. The actual mechanism for this, I actually read, was that when your body is desperate to survive, it'll often just evacuate the bowels and escape. Like a little squid when it releases it. So same things happen before exams or when you're really stressed. And this also tends to affect chronically your digestive system will not be happy and healthy. Your gut bacteria won't be having a good time. Conversely, if you're not absorbing the right vitamins and minerals, your body will start to crave certain things. Oftentimes the problem is when we are low in minerals, our bodies won't crave like fruit and veggies. We want to go for the quickest, easiest source of energy. And that's why we start getting cravings for particularly sugar, because we're wanting that quick release of energy. We have trouble with memory, focus, and mood, because when your cortisol is high, you're trying to escape. You're not trying to think of the next most intelligent, universal problem. You're trying to think, where the fuck can I go to escape? So you want to try and make sure that if you're in high cortisol levels, you're not going to be having a good time with memory, focus, and your mood's going to be all over the place. Because stress affects so many of your sex hormones, as all of them, your libido will often drop when you're very stressed. It's probably, again, you're not in rest and digest state. It's the last thing you're wanting to be thinking about. And the biggest thing is slow healing, like the body is not recovering and regenerating. So this is the biggest thing for me. My skin, my acne is a big thing that comes up. Your skin is often the last symptom that turns up as to what's going on though. So having this slow healing, dry skin, wounds don't heal as well, and starting to get infections very easily is a big part of having this elevated cortisol. Now the next slide is about low cortisol. It's actually kind of rare to have naturally very low cortisol. There's a disease called Addison's disease where your body doesn't actually make it. That's not what we're talking about in this next section. What happens is if you're like this for a long time, you know what, we're talking about insulin resistance, you can get cortisol resistance, which is a very similar thing. Then your body absolutely crashes with the cortisol. So in this state, your body might actually not be regulating that it has much cortisol at all, which is actually a problem, because you might be thinking, well, I'm very stressed, and these results might be coming up with a lot of cortisol, but it's because it's absolutely flatlined. So after cortisol levels are elevated for a long time, they can deplete vital nutrients, the neurotransmitters that you're trying to use to regulate all your body systems, and you get this cortisol resistance. As Nikiita said before, the cells that help to clear out testosterone actually help clear out cortisol. So if they're taken up with the cortisol, they're not able to handle all the other processes in the body. In this state, you don't tend to get as much white time, you're just exhausted all day, so you're constantly burnt out. You feel like you can't even get out of bed, and then at night you could absolutely just fall asleep. These people tend to be able to just nap or sleep at any time. The classic, like, I think I got to this state, and my thing was like, if I had a nap, people were like, oh, you want to sleep at bedtime? I was like, I will sleep at bedtime very easily. I'll have a nap and be able to sleep. Your sleep will also be poor. You won't have this high quality sleep. You'll get chronic aches and pains because your body's not able to recover. We tend to get that loss of muscle mass, like we said before about testosterone. The body's not going to be clearing or moving it through the body as correctly. You're not going to be getting adequate amounts of it. Actually, no, that's correct. Your cortisol tends to actually steal proteins from your muscles. So when your body is in a stress state, it wants that energy, it will actually break down the proteins in your body, which is your muscle. So we don't want that at all. You'll get depression and anxiety, and it's very associated with chronic fatigue syndrome and ongoing digestive problems like IBS. So it's not a great state to be in, and it's very, very hard to have the energy to get out and do your daily activity when you're in this state. Another thing I'd like to know is having a long-term illness, you can go conversely, like having this level of cortisol can actually cause long-term autoimmune conditions and diseases, but if you already have one, it can also cause this state conversely. So it's important to know it's a two-way street. Now, causes of dysregulated cortisol. I've called it dysregulated because high cortisol can actually end up eventually being low cortisol. It's not like exactly two ends of a balanced spectrum, it's one thing. But long term, too much stress and stimuli in your life can constantly berate you with that stress response and put you in fight or flight mode. So your poor body is trying to deal with so much stimuli, it's just like, screw it, I'm just going to throw out cortisol. Poor sleep habits to begin with. If you're not getting that lovely sleep cycle, your body's not recovering and regulating your cortisol levels. Too much caffeine, which is one of my biggest issues. It really affects your stress response. Like often if you get the coffee jitters, your body is in fight or flight mode. It's trying to escape and speak of the next thing. And while that seems like really good and for your focus short term, long term it can really deplete those nutrients in your body. Inflammatory foods, almost every single hormone in this list is affected by having a poor diet. If you're eating foods that are causing that inflammatory response, your poor body is not going to be able to handle it very well. Things like gluten and dairy, food intolerances, if your body doesn't digest something very well, like it tends to upset your tummy or you're getting a little bit of an allergic response to it, it's going to be releasing cortisol as well. And refined sugar, it's just not good for you. It's more mental things as well really affect your cortisol. So it's not just what you physically do, and this was the biggest empowering thing for me. It's like not just what you put into your body, it's how you act and how you think. So my big thing is thinking more is better, or the busyness syndrome. Some people just don't know how to sit and relax, or they think that it's something to feel guilty about. And this is what often causes you to be stressed all the time. Even when you're supposed to be chilling out for the afternoon, you're thinking about what's next, what can I do, or just packing up your schedule. So it's called busyness syndrome, and it's something that is an addiction for a lot of women, especially those that have very busy lives, businesses, careers, kids, everything like that. Also, holding on to stress. Now, a good analogy for this is this beautiful glass of water here. If you're holding out a glass of water in your hand, for a short time that's fine, muscles might burn a bit, but if you're trying to hold that out for hours and hours and hours, your poor arm's about to fall off. Same thing happens in your brain when you're holding on to stress. Stress is a humongous burden. If you're constantly holding onto it in your brain, it's going to start affecting every single hormone in your body. Unexpressed emotions, so having poor emotional intelligence, not understanding why you feel certain ways and not expressing them, can help and can start to make you feel stressed. And of course, all of these are related to stress. That increases that cortisol response. Like I said before, an autoimmune or long-term disease, and also unconscious habits. So if you're unconsciously always holding yourself in that fight or flight state. It's a physiological and psychological cycle. So if I was to round forward, breathe shallowly, and act stressed, my body will start thinking that there's a threat. So start releasing those hormones and think, shit, we need to get ready for this target, something's going on. Most people's natural posture is like this. So their body is always thinking that it's under attack, or it's going to, there's next stressful thing coming along, which can contribute to that cortisol response. Conversely, doing the opposite can help you reduce your cortisol. Now, regulating it. So a lot of these things are about your mind and slowing down. There's a lot you can do for your body as well. Biggest thing is reducing the burden of stress. So I know most people are like, oh no, I've got so much stress in my life, I can't let go of it. You're like, yeah, that's cool, you don't have to get rid of your kids and your job. It's about reducing the burden of that stress, so how that actually affects you. My favourite quote is, it's not what happens to you, it's how you respond to it. So lots of things can happen to you in your daily life, but it's how you react, it's the most important part to how your body responds. Biggest thing is also improving your sleep, stress relief activities and things that you can do to relieve the burden. Movement is very important, so I'm a movement specialist. I love exercise. I think it's an important part in regulating your stress. High quality food. This goes for all the stress hormones. You must eat well, otherwise your body's going to go down the drain. It is exactly, your food is what makes up your body. So if you're putting shit into your body, then shit will come out. No, it doesn't anyway. Reducing caffeine. Supplementation, like most of these hormones, we have supplements that can help them out, which can be very beneficial, and working on your mindset. The way you think eventually becomes who you are. So it's so important to work on your mindset. Now, sleep is first up on the list. Like to keep puppy. He's having a good time sleeping. Sleep habits are really important. I was someone who did not have a great sleep schedule, which I'm still working on, but that can be an automatic habit for a long time, which causes that dysregulation in your cortisol. A good way is to sleep at regular time periods, so having a similar habit per day as to when you go to sleep, when you wind down, and when you wake up can really help to regulate your circadian rhythm, or the way that your body works every day, which pretty much mirrors the cortisol response. You need to sleep for enough hours a night to recover. Your body has 4 stages of sleep. If you're not getting those natural cycles of sleep and never getting into what's called stage 4, your body's probably not going to be getting that rest and regeneration it needs. So if you're not getting enough sleep and not getting the right cycles, you're just going to end up with high cortisol again. Avoiding stimulants prior to bed, so you've probably felt that if you have something high in caffeine or something that hypes you up, it's not going to help you sleep. Having a nighttime routine. Oh no. Having a nighttime routine. How long does it go when it's low battery? Where's that? Anyway, having a nighttime routine can be really good to help you wind down, and what's called priming for a parasympathetic state. So like we've talked about a few times, the rest and digest state is what you want to be in when you go to sleep. Now my actual favourite way to do this is I've got a little exercise that I do, which I would not do it because I have to lay down. What I do is I lay down next to my bed, I put my legs up and I elevate them on my bed, and I start focusing on my deep breathing. That helps to activate what's called the vagus nerve in your body, which helps to activate that parasympathetic response. I find that is the best way to get me to go to sleep, and I feel zonked out if I do that. So I recommend most people to do that before they go to bed. Also doing some stretching or just some general breathing activities or doing some meditation can be very helpful to help you get to sleep properly. Movement. Now, movement's very important, but sometimes this is one thing that's my downfall, is overdoing it can cause more harm than good. Everything has a Goldilocks rule, the right balance of enough and not too much. So there's some exercises you can do lots of, like daily deep breathing and stretching is awesome movement to help regulate your cortisol and relax you. Yoga is awesome for that. Yoga is one of the most healing movements you can do, especially if you're someone who's got adrenal fatigue or stress, a very stressful life. Walking and doing daily activity is great as well, but then strength training. So strength training is important for not only like helping build testosterone, balancing out your hormones, it's good for resilience mentally and physically. It actually help you respond to stress better. Plus, if you feel strong, you're not as scared of everything. So strength training is really important. But don't overdo it, especially if you're strength training 6 or 7 times a week, really high intensity sessions. Your body's never getting a chance to recover and regenerate itself. So you don't want to be overdoing that as well. My recommendation is like about 3 times a week is good, maybe a little bit more if you're also able to recover, but you don't want to be banging it out every single day. And also don't overdo high intensity exercise. I'm a big fan of high intensity interval training, it's great, but if you're also doing that every day, your body is just not having a chance to chill out. And because high intensity exercise does increase and spike your cortisol levels, if you're never having that chance to let it come back down to its homeostasis or its natural state, it's just going to keep spiking and spiking and spiking until you do the same thing to yourself as every other stress. A big thing is I recommend don't doing too much moderate intensity steady state for this exact reason. Moderate intensity steady state is things like just going for runs, swims, rides, triathletes, anything that's like long term is very stressful upon your body, and your body tends to break down muscle tissue in that state. So you don't want to do too much moderate intensity steady state during the week. Also trying to recover as much as you train, so make sure you're doing stretching, breathing, doing all the things that I recommend after your training can help you get back to that relaxed state. Again, things like a massage or a sauna or a spa, they're great ways to get the blood flow moving around the body, getting rid of that waste products and reducing your cortisol. And this is classic, everything is along the same lines, eating good food. High quality food is so important for making your body healthy and happy. For cortisol in particular, eating whole foods and reducing processed is important because, as we said before, anything that creates that inflammatory response to the body is going to increase your cortisol levels. So, long term it will cause some chronic conditions. Plus, remember, it goes both ways. If your gut is not happy because you're just eating the big nasty thing that's not helping and not digesting well, it's going to increase your cortisol. And if your cortisol is high, your digestive state's not going to be great, so you're not going to be able to digest things. So trying to eat really good foods that support and nourish your body is so important. Good fats are also really important. Your cellular health and the sheaths around your neurons are all created by fat. So if you're not eating enough dietary fat, and again as it relates to all the other hormones, you're going to have issues regulating your cortisol, and your cells will not be as healthy and able to understand what's going on. Protein is very important. Cortisol actually breaks down protein for energy. So as I said before, if you're really stressed, you're probably going to have trouble building muscle because it's constantly breaking down muscle proteins and proteins that it finds for energy and that glucose. Gluconeogenesis, I think it's called. And if you're not having enough protein to replenish that, and you're not giving yourself the stimulus to grow and develop more muscle with strength training, your poor old body is going to have a hard time dealing with it, and the cortisol is just going to take over. Also, having slow burning carbohydrates, they help to regulate the blood sugar. So this is related to your cortisol. If you're having lots of sugar, that spikes up your blood sugar, and your insulin response to that is really high. And then as that comes down again, your body's going to get those dips and troughs of energy. If you're having more slow burning carbohydrates, so that's things that have fiber, like oats or rice with a casing, or potatoes that have a skin, or sweet potato, anything with lots of fiber in it, it's going to help your body to regulate that blood sugar a lot easier. It also helps to offset the cortisol response because of the slow release of insulin. And also fiber and digestion, as I said before, helping out your gut is going to help out every other aspect of your body, goes both ways. Yes, and reducing caffeine and stimulants. So caffeine ramps up that fight or flight response, as I said before. So if you're constantly having 2, 3, 4 coffees a day, you're keeping spiking that response all day, and your body does get tolerant to caffeine as well. So it's almost like every other thing that gets resilient in your body, the same thing happens with caffeine. It's just too much stress on your body, and it starts to plummet down back into that cortisol, that low cortisol state really quickly. I recommend taking time off coffee or reducing it. I personally do where you don't have it for a little while and you actually feel how much it affects your body. This is exactly what I felt. I would drink a couple of coffees a day and feel totally fine, like that's how I got through every morning. But when I took time off, I felt so exhausted, and then after my tolerance came back down again, one coffee makes me super jittery, and so I had one the other day and I was just sitting there like, so it's amazing how much it actually affects your body. So taking time off to reduce the tolerance can be good. Other options are replacing it with decaf or tea as well. Because I'm a bit sensitive about this because I do, when someone's an actual ex-addict, they're just like, oh, it's a touchy area. I love coffee. But it's very important if your cortisol is important to you. Another way to regulate cortisol, we do have a few supplements. So supplements that are great for cortisol are what are called adaptogenic herbs. So these are really fancy herbs that actually help to regulate something in your body. So for cortisol, These are ones that can help lower it if it's high, and will regulate it if it's high, and help to increase it if it's low. So these magical herbs are things like ashwagandha, shishandra, I don't know how to say that, shishandra, and these are all found in our product CourtRx. So this is one of my primary supplements that I take, is CourtRx. It's fantastic to help you sleep. It's fantastic to help with anxiety or feelings of nervousness early in the morning that can come from feeling jittery. Other things like anything that's anti-inflammatory is great for cortisol. So as we said a few times, if something is inflamed in your body's thinking, shit, I'm under a stress response, it needs to send out that cortisol to help bring it down. Omega-3s, ginger and antioxidants are all really important for anti-inflammatory, anti-inflammation. And magnesium is also good. Magnesium has a really soothing, healing effect on your cells, and most of us are very deficient in it due to our soils being quite depleted in magnesium. So it's great to take that, especially before bed. I love taking magnesium before bed. There's quite a few supplements you can take to help your cortisol. And one of my biggest ones, this is the biggest thing for me, I like to attach myself to my stress and my overwork as being one part of my self-worth, which is actually very interesting because this meant that any time I tried to reduce my stress, that response would come back up like, no, I need to do this and this and this. And that, of course, just keeps ramping my cortisol back up again. So learning to regulate your mindset is extremely important for cortisol as well. Biggest thing is reducing the burden of your stresses. So again, you can't get rid of everything in your life, but understanding that what's happening to you can relate to in a calm and consistent manner. You can respond to it and also let it go when it's done and dusted. Setting boundaries around things as well. So if you're a yes person and you're always saying yes to things, even if you don't really want to do it, then again, that's going to add more stress to your life. If you set your own boundaries and say, this is what I do, and this is who I am, and this is where I'm at, people will respect that, and then generally, you're going to be able to create a much better life around yourself with less stress. Same thing goes for having your own space. Being able to take time for yourself, go to the gym, go to meditation or yoga, for you is very important because of that boundary. Reducing that busyness addiction. So even when you've set your boundaries and you have the time to sit there and do your relaxation exercises, and then all of a sudden you're like, oh, but what I need to do this, and then I need to do that, and I've got to put this in. It's a crazy addiction, so we need to try and reduce that. Taking time for yourself, even little self-awareness exercises are really important for realizing what stresses you out. So many times we've coped with so much stress throughout our lives that we keep manifesting that in our life to keep up with who we think we are. But then after a while, you think, this doesn't even make me happy. So self-awareness is really important to thinking, what actually makes me happy in my life? What do I want to do? And that, if you're happy, you tend to reduce your stress. So you won't have a massive slide down into cortisol responses. Taking breathing breaks. Best way to get back into parasympathetic state is to breathe. So learning to breathe down into your diaphragm and into your belly can really help to activate that vagus nerve and relax your body to get back into a more relaxed state, which again reduces cortisol. And yes, recognizing you can't control events, but you can control your response. Probably the most anxious people that I've coached or trained or know are ones that think they can control everything around them. Or if something that you ask them, can you actually do anything about that? And they say no, and they still stress about it, then I think they're the ones that hold on to the most stress of all. If you learn that things around you that you can control are within your control and you can do something about it, then that's awesome. You shouldn't stress about it. Actually, I should put, there's a great flow chart about this that was exactly that. Yeah. But then also, if you can't control something, it is outside of your circumstances, then you shouldn't stress about it. That's another really awesome revelation that can help with your stress response. Working on your self-worth and emotional intelligence, I think this ties back into self-awareness. Again, if you understand yourself, what you want, why you want to do things, doing self-care, looking after yourself, you're much less likely to be overly stressed. Overdoing it is also not a badge of honour. This goes in line with busyness addiction. So many people think that being asked to take on things or doing too many things can kind of contribute to their self-worth and them being worth it in life. That's not it. You are worth it the way you are. Overdoing things is not a badge of honour. And last thing is meditation. This is one of the best things that I've integrated in my life to help reduce my cortisol levels. Meditation is pretty much sitting there in your own state, breathing deeply, and trying to get back into that parasympathetic state. It's awesome for everything I've just said above, like your self-awareness and your self-worth, but it's also great for physiologically relaxing your body. Meditation is awesome and very simple. The way I do it is I literally sit against a wall with a beanbag. I have headphones in my ears, listen to forest music, and just focus on my breath. it's an awesome way to help get your body back into this relaxed state. Cool. Alright, so that's a bit about cortisol. So that's my favourite one. When I discovered everything about cortisol, I could finally take back my life and reduce the symptoms that have been affecting me so much. Now we'll go into the third leg of the hormonal tripod, hormonal stool, which is thyroid. Now, thyroid, we put it last because oftentimes thyroid is very related to your stress and how that's affecting your body, your cortisol, and your sex hormones and how they're affecting your thyroid as well. But it can go both ways if you have an autoimmune condition. So the thyroid is a butterfly-shaped gland. So it's up against your neck, so right up against your windpipe. It secretes hormones from it, and it's very interlinked to every other aspect of your hormones. It's directly related to your energy and your metabolism and heat production. So generally people that have lower thyroid activity tend to be very cold all the time. There are a lot of hormones that get released by the thyroid. The biggest ones like T3 and T4. TSH, which is thyroid stimulating hormone, is actually released from your pituitary gland in your brain. So that's the hormone that stimulates those hormones to start. But sometimes that's what people get tested on, so it's actually not that way around. We want to try and focus on your T3 and your T4. Now, when your thyroid is not releasing enough hormones, it's what's called hypothyroidism. This is when it is too low. So if your body isn't producing enough thyroid hormones, you're probably getting symptoms like fatigue and lethargy. You get cold sensitivities, get cold all the time, slow healing, dry skin, thin hair, you get constipation because your body is not running on a high level. You get consistent pain and stiffness, and sometimes you can get an enlarged thyroid, which is a goiter. Weirdly, this happens with both hyperthyroidism, so overactive, and then also hypothyroidism, underactive. So that's big lump you may have seen on some people's necks. Alright, so you probably noticed that a lot of those symptoms are very similar to when your cortisol is too high, and some of the hormonal responses as well. So you can see how they all start to tie into each other, and they all relate to each other as well. Now, causes of this, one big thing is there's something called Hashimoto's disease, which is the autoimmune response in the body, where the body is attacking its own thyroid. So this is obviously not a nice condition, but this can be one of the biggest causes of your thyroid not creating enough hormones. It's actually quite common, but if you do have that, it's probably best to see a specialist about it because you need more specialised treatment. But on the flip side of that, if you're creating the lower release of thyroid hormones, it's probably due to having an estrogen dominance, like we had with the sex hormones, having too much stress and really elevated cortisol. Cortisol directly relates to the release of thyroid hormones. It reduces them quite significantly. Same deal, inflammation from infection, allergy, toxic exposure, and stress. If you're obese, then oftentimes it's, again, both ways. Your fat cells release chemicals that affect your thyroid function, and sadly, when your thyroid is not functioning well and your metabolism is slow, you're not going to burn calories as fast and as effectively. Certain nutritional deficiencies like iodine, zinc, and selenium can really affect your thyroid function, and certain foods. Soy and gluten have been known to really affect the way that your body releases these hormones as well. Now, what to do about it? First things first is the first two legs of the stool. Make sure you're looking after your sex hormones and looking after your adrenals, particularly the adrenals. They really affect your thyroid function. You can get tested for this, but as I said before, when you get tested, like whether it's with a doctor or a naturopath, make sure they test all the thyroid hormones, like T3 and T4, not just this TSH, because as we said before, TSH is released by your pituitary gland. It doesn't often state how much thyroid hormone you're actually releasing. So of course you may come up as normal when the other hormones are not even being released, but this hormone is saying that they should be released. So you want to make sure you're getting tested. Identify food sensitivities, because some of them can really directly affect it. Make sure you're eating adequate amounts of protein. Nikki added installing a fluoride filter. She said that fluoride suppresses the thyroid quite significantly. So this is like that chemically taste that you... Does fluoride have a taste? It doesn't have a taste. There you go. So is it chlorine that tastes in the water? Yeah, so there you go. Fluoride's sneaky. It doesn't taste like anything. But lots of mainstream water has fluoride in it. It's the same stuff that's in your toothpaste. I thought you were saying something about fluoride. Ashwagandha is great for your thyroid health as well, plus supplementing with selenium, zinc, and chromium. We have that magical product again, ZMST, which has heaps of those minerals in it that can help supplement when your body is low. Plus, we also have a specific supplement that helps with thyroid function called T432. This helps to upregulate metabolism. I generally take it in winter to help me keep a little bit warmer, and it really works. It's a good product. It also has some herbs in it as well as some minerals. These are also some great foods that you can have to help with your thyroid function. Where's that video? Oh no. This is a slightly not updated version on Matt's computer. Anyway, there's a picture there. But you can also have hyperthyroidism. So when you've got hypothyroidism, your body is not releasing enough thyroid hormones. When you've got hyperthyroidism, you're releasing too many. This isn't as common. It's a condition that often causes things like excessive heat, sweating, diarrhea. You tend to get bulging eyes, interestingly. I was like reading up on it. But this one is probably best to see a specialist about. It's a little bit easier for us to recommend things for hypothyroidism, but sometimes hyperthyroidism, if they give you too many hormones to downregulate, you can actually end up flipping over into hypothyroidism. So I want to probably see a specialist about that one. Alright, so we've been through cortisol and the thyroid in a little bit more detail. Again, same deal, probably write down any notes or anything that's relating to you. But what we're going to go through next is general hormonal health information that every woman needs to know. We've got a nifty little cycle way of explaining what we should be doing each month to help keep our hormones happy. I'm probably fucking yelling. It's okay. Is it good? Yes, it's good. Can everyone hear me properly? Hello?
Yeah, you got it.
Okay, cool. That's good?
Yep.
Okay, I can't hear it at all. Okay, so this here is basically our menstrual cycle. It goes from days 1 to 28. And it's basically here, it's comparing all the different phases of our menstrual cycle to different seasons. So we have our menstrual phase, which is when we get our period. That can be compared to winter. And then we have our follicular phase, which is the first half of our cycle, which can be compared to spring. Ovulation, which is when we release the egg, that can be compared to summer. And then we have our luteal phase, which is the second half of our menstrual cycle, which can be compared to autumn. So the reason I've done this is because as women, we are cyclic creatures, but often we don't respect the fact that we are cyclic creatures. So we think that we should just be able to go all the time. And if we're not going all the time, then we get really upset with ourselves because we're like, why is my energy not as good as it should be? Or, you know, why have I got a headache right now? But we are cyclic creatures, so it's really important that we respect the natural cycles that are going in our bodies. So firstly, we have winter or menstruation. So like I mentioned, this is when we get our period. This usually lasts from 5 to 7 days. So just like in winter, it's a time for slowing down. So basically all of our hormones drop really, really low, and our uterine lining breaks down, and that's what is seen as our period. During this time, our energy might also be really low, like you would sort of feel in winter. The foods that we should eat during this phase of our cycle include foods that are rich in iron, zinc, and collagen. This is because we are bleeding and we are losing a lot of these minerals during our period. So foods that can actually nourish this and contain these minerals include stuff like grass-fed meats or good quality meats, seafood, spinach, pumpkin seeds, kelp, avocado, bone broths, and fruit. So all of these foods that I've mentioned all contain iron, zinc, and collagen and other really nice minerals and vitamins that are really nourishing for that time of the month.
And exercise-wise, you probably feel this already, but when you're on your period, you want to try and be relaxing and regenerating. So exercises like yoga, slow movement, walking, and Pilates are awesome at this time of the month. And it's important not to beat yourself up that you can't hit your PBs at this time. It's just not going to happen hormonally. Yes?
Sorry, question. What about if you're supposed to have it but you don't? Does it count for the same thing?
It depends on the reason you're not having it. Yeah. So is it because you're on the pill or something, or? Yeah, so we can talk about it afterwards, but yeah, it's very depending on what the reason is. Yeah.
Sorry, are you saying not to do strength training?
Oh, no, you can, but it's a time that it would probably be better to do slower movements. Or if you're strength training, doing a lighter day, more of a lighter hypertrophy or recovery workout.
Yeah.
probably not the best time to go for heavy lifts. So actually, if you're thinking about this, if you are someone on a strength training program and you're looking to build strength and do like testing or anything, try and put it in your ovulation stage, like when you're strongest, so you can actually see those benefits.
It's more like if you are doing strength training around this time of the month and you're not hitting those goals that you want to be hitting, don't beat yourself up for it because you're not meant to be super strong around this time of the month. So just respect that. Yeah.
Yeah, learning to respect your body as well. That's right.
And do you want to do the bottom bit?
Yep, well, it's times for being, recharging your batteries, reconnecting with yourself, nourishing and healing, staying low. You want to try and make sure that this is a time for regeneration. It's important not to just burn yourself at both ends.
Yeah, just like you would in winter, it's more of an introverted stage. Okay, so then the next phase is what's known as the follicular phase. So this is the phase after menstruation all the way up until we ovulate. So this can be compared to spring. So it's sort of like you've been through winter, it's been on cold, now it's sunny outside, the birds are outside, there's beautiful animals outside, and you're wanting to be out in the world and you're wanting to be creative, just like you would in spring. So basically this is when our hormones, they start low, but they actually start to rise, and also your follicles start to develop and your uterine lining starts to grow. Sorry. Okay, so during this time of the cycle, you would eat just like you would usually in spring. So you want to eat lighter sort of foods such as salads, berries, cacao, broccoli, Brussels sprouts, apples, carrots, fish, eggs, walnuts, and poultry. A lot of these foods contain antioxidants and good quality protein, which helps that follicle grow at a really nice rate.
Exercise-wise, as we said, although you can strength train during the period, it's time now that you've got a little bit more energy that you can start incorporating more and high intensity interval training. You're going to put that in. Heavier strength sessions, you can do a little bit more cardio and get back into some more full body stuff. You should be feeling pretty good at this time, so your energy's back up. It's great for, you said it's good for socialising, getting out there. This is, if you are wanting to like base your training around your cycle, it can actually be a really good way to be really in tune with yourself. But I find this is the best time to start getting all your high intensity stuff back in there.
Yeah, and stuff like starting new projects and making new decisions and stuff, this is a really good time for it. You'll find you're a lot more social during this time. You can talk to people a lot easier, it's flowing a lot more. It's time for being assertive, it's time for making decisions. You're not as emotional around this time of the month, so you're more like this, and yeah, just embracing being extroverted. Okay, so then summer can be compared to ovulation. This is the middle of the month. It can be from anywhere days 14 to 21, like I said, and it's also a few days around ovulation. So this is when our follicle releases our egg and the uterine lining continues to thicken due to that rise in estrogen. So, so foods that can support this time of your cycle are ones that support healthy estrogen metabolism. So they're those cruciferous vegetables I was talking about, the broccoli, the kale, the cabbage. All of this helps metabolize estrogen at a healthy rate, because after it peaks, it drops very quickly, and that's when our liver has to kick in and start getting rid of it at a good rate. Also stuff like fruit and chia seeds, this contains the fiber I was talking about to make sure your gut is moving and also excreting it. And then, adequate fat and protein, just because that's what our hormones are made out of, and also helps the liver detoxify that estrogen as well.
As I've already said, like if you are planning on like peaking or doing PDs at a certain time, this is the best time. This is when your testosterone tends to peak, so you've probably got the most energy, the most strength, and probably the most get up and go. It's also a good time for like public speaking, flirting intimacy, getting out there, because obviously if we're animals, it'd be the time that you can get pregnant. Networking, meeting new people, going out for fun, and important meetings or interviews. This is the time you tend to have the most confidence and the most up and go.
And you'll find that your libido probably peaks around this time, like Kirsty said, because this is when our body wants us to get pregnant, so we have that rise in testosterone and we have a rise in libido as well. And then lastly, we have our luteal phase, which is the second half of our menstrual cycle. This is sort of split into two phases. We can have like the first phase of it where, if you compare it to coming out of summer, when it's autumn, it's still sort of sunny outside, so you're still doing stuff, you're still out and about. But then when it comes to the end of autumn, it's starting to get a little bit colder again, so you're becoming a little bit more hibernated, a little bit more inside and indoors. So basically during this time, we have that rise of our progesterone, and then our progesterone and our estrogen drop right before we menstruate again. PMS is often very common during this phase of our cycle, particularly the second half of this phase. So we want to be eating foods such as green leafy vegetables, legumes, bananas, avocados, black beans, figs, potatoes, pumpkin and parsnips. A lot of these contain that vitamin B6 that I was talking about that helps a lot with those PMS symptoms.
And as we were saying before, the first half is still good for doing your strength training and high-intensity stuff, your cardio, but then you want to try and phase back down to before your period. So you can start doing some slower movements or some lighter recovery sessions. So if you're someone who's planning on doing a training program with a recovery week, this is probably a good time to start it. It's just before your period, the last half of this phase. It's a good time for romance, connecting with people, completing to-do lists for the first bit. And the second bit is when it's time to start relaxing, regenerating, getting back into yourself, again with introverted time, and also listening to your intuition. So it's cool to learn about your cycle and see that if you are in tune to it and you can start to balance it, how it can actually affect your life and how you can start optimizing it. Cool. How's that going?
Alright, so I'm just going to quickly talk about the contraceptive pill. The Implanon, some of you may have heard of, but that's very similar to the contraceptive pill, but it's just that bar that women get in their arms, but it's basically the same compounds, it's just in a different form. So there's two reasons why women might take the contraceptive pill. Number one is for contraception. That's great, that's what it's meant for. However, women need to be aware of the side effects that may be present and also that there are alternative methods. And then the other reason a woman might take the contraceptive pill is actually for symptom management. So 60% of women actually take the pill for this reason. Either they get monthly headaches, acne, Polycystic Ovarian Syndrome, endometriosis, lots of different conditions. All doctors know how to treat these conditions with is the pill. So that's the other reason why women might be on the pill. This is okay, but this becomes more of a problem because it's simply just a band-aid solution. Whatever's going on inside of your body is still happening even if you're on the pill. It's just covering up those symptoms. But that chemical storm that's happening inside of you is still there, and if you go off the pill, it's going to come back, and it might come back even worse. So, these are just some myths that a lot of women may have heard about the pill. The pill regulates your period, and a pill bleed is a period. This is false. When you get your period on the pill, when you take those sugar pills and then you end up bleeding, this is not actually a real period. You're not actually ovulating, you're not actually building up a good, strong uterine lining. You're simply just bleeding because your body is withdrawing from the synthetic compounds it's had all month. So it's actually not a real period, it's what's called a pill bleed. Contraceptive drugs or hormones, this is false. They are similar to hormones, but they're not exactly identical to the hormones we have in our bodies. Some are actually quite different, so they have what's called a progestin in it, which is meant to mimic progesterone. It does some of the things that progesterone would do, but then it does actually a lot of different things that is negative when progesterone would be positive for. So they're not actually identical to the hormones in our bodies. You don't need to ovulate until you're ready for a baby. We know now this is false because if you're not ovulating, you're not getting that lovely, healthy progesterone, which we all want, because eventually when we go through menopause, we're not going to get that progesterone anymore. So we sort of want it in our bodies for as long as we can get it. And also the pill fixes PCOS, which is Polycystic Ovarian Syndrome. It doesn't fix it, it band-aids it. Everything's still going on underneath. Okay, so I don't want to scare people at all, but this is just some side effects that you may experience on the pill. I just feel like it's really important for women to be aware of this because we're literally not told any of it when we get on the pill. Maybe some people are, but I definitely wasn't. So you may experience depression, headaches, gut damage, a state in your gut called leaky gut, autoimmune diseases. The pill depletes B vitamins, folate and magnesium. This happens in every single woman who takes the pill. You may experience a reduced libido, hair loss, fat gain, and you can even experience blood clots and thyroid dysfunction. And it's even being now linked to increasing the risk of some sort of cancers, heart disease, and stroke. So it does have some pretty serious side effects that we're often not told about, so it's really important that women are at least aware of this because we have the right to know about it. So, I'm not going to go too much into this because we don't have the time, but transitioning off the pill is very individual to each woman. Some women might be completely fine. Other women, like myself, might go through a lot of issues. So I have 3 main points here, but there's many, many more. Number 1, take a good quality multivitamin. Like I said, the pill depletes all of these vitamins from your body, so you really want a good quality multivitamin that's going to restore those reserves of nutrients. A good quality magnesium is really, really important as well. Magnesium is involved in over 400 different chemical reactions in our body, and the pill depletes us of this magnesium. So that's just my second recommendation. If I was to recommend like one mineral or vitamin to everyone on this earth, it would be magnesium, because we just don't get enough in our foods, especially WA. I think we have like 0% magnesium in our soils or something, so that's really important, and it can do so much good for so many different conditions. And number 3, liver support. We really want to be supporting that excess synthetic estrogen that we've been taking for all these years, and we want to be clearing it out. So we want to be doing all those liver supporting activities that I talked about when I talked about estrogen dominance, such as eating those broccolis, drinking water, not having alcohol, etc. If you are interested about getting off the pill, or you are currently on the pill and you want to support your body in the healthiest way possible, this is an amazing book. It goes into all the different symptoms, it's just really, really complex, and yeah, has a lot of information in there if you are more interested. I highly recommend it. Okay, so alternatives to birth control. Firstly, of course, we know we have condoms, but not everyone likes them, which is why a lot of us do go onto the contraceptive pill. We then also have the pull-out method, but most of us probably know it's not necessarily the most effective method. And then we do have what's called the fertility awareness method. So basically, this involves tracking your body temperature and your fertile mucus every month to see when you're ovulating. And then when you are ovulating, I think it's 3 days before ovulation and 2 days afterwards, that is what's known as your fertile phase. So if you are having sex during your fertile phase, then you're more likely to get pregnant. So basically, you track your temperature every morning to make sure you know when you have ovulated. You also track to see what your fertile mucus is looking like. And then during the phase you are actually fertile, you have sex with a condom if you're going to have sex. And then during the phases that you're not fertile, you can have sex, or you shouldn't get pregnant because you're not fertile. I think it has a 97% success rate if done properly, which is exactly the same as the contraceptive pill. So these are some really cool apps you can use to do that, and you can also just use a journal to track your period and get to know more about your body and when you might be experiencing certain symptoms. So Kirsty and I both really love Clue. That's this one here. So that first picture, you've got just really cool little pictures of how you're feeling today. So this is your emotions. Are you feeling happy, sensitive, sad, PMS? And then the middle one is your cycle. You can see that blue section of the middle photo is your fertile window, so that's when you probably shouldn't be having sex there unprotected unless you want to have a baby. And then it just shows you more information about things you might be experiencing. So basically you can track it all 1 month and then look back the next month and be like, I might be feeling like this month, maybe I should do this. It's really cool to just see what your body's doing every month and match up different times of your cycle to different feelings and different experiences. You can also use other apps such as Glow, Period Tracker, Flow. I've tried most of them, but Clue's definitely my favourite just because it's really user-friendly. Okay, so we're also just going to quickly talk about menopause. So menopause, technically, is the time in a woman's life when they haven't had a period for a whole year. So a lot of women think of, when you're experiencing hot flushes and all these other effects that go along with menopause, that's menopause. But that's actually usually what is known as perimenopause. So perimenopause is what occurs 2 to 12 years before you reach menopause. It's very different in every single woman, and very unique. So with perimenopause, estrogen is actually what's known as an estrogen roller coaster. So you'll have cycles where your estrogen is really high and it peaks, twice as high as it usually would, and then you'll have cycles where the estrogen falls really, really low. And that's just your ovaries trying to sort of regulate and because they're trying to slowly shut down, but they're also responding to what they did last month. So they're going up and down, up and down. So that's why women experiencing perimenopause can have both symptoms from the high estrogen list and the low estrogen list, because their body is sort of trying to regulate that. Whereas when you actually hit menopause, which is 1 year after your last period, you should have no estrogen by then. Everything should have leveled out and reduced. So perimenopause can involve hot flushes and night sweats, migraines and headaches, sleep problems, mood swings, heavy or irregular periods. This is very common while people are going through perimenopause, the heavy periods especially, just because that estrogen is going crazy. Sore breasts and heart palpitations. It's not always the most, well, it's definitely not a pleasant time in a lot of women's lives, but it can be made easier. And then when we actually hit menopause, it should be relatively symptom-free compared to perimenopause. There are still a few symptoms that do go along with menopause. Things like hot flushes may stay around for a little bit. Every woman is completely different. Some women might have it for 2 years. Some women might have it for 5 years afterwards. It's all very, very individual. Osteoporosis as well. So basically, because estrogen is involved in the health of our bones, when we have less estrogen, our bones become less strong. But this is also dependent on many other factors, such as if someone smokes, if someone's been on a lot of medication during their life, and heaps of other things. So that's important to be mindful of. And there was a study, I'm not sure because I haven't hit menopause, but basically the study it followed, I think, 200 women for the 20 years of their menopausal transition. And basically, once women actually hit menopause, they reported actually feeling pretty fantastic in regards to their mood. So during the perimenopause, their mood was all over the place, but once they actually hit that menopause, they said they felt pretty good again, almost like you would when you were younger, when you also had low amounts of hormones, but your body was sort of steadied out. So another quote, women need to know that perimenopause ends in a kinder and calmer phase of life towards menopause. And we actually spend about a third of our life there, so yeah. Yeah. Okay, so supporting the menopausal transition. So there's a few things that you can do to support this transition in your life. First one is slow down and practice self-care. So a lot of hectic things are happening in your body at this time of your life. So it's really, really important that we slow down and we actually look after ourselves, because we might not be able to do all the things we did when we were younger, but also it's just a time to really respect yourself and realize that there is stuff happening inside your body and you can't always be superwoman all the time. Reducing alcohol is a massive one. Like I mentioned before, alcohol doubles your estrogen if you're having alcohol every day, and we don't want that estrogen. It's already been doubled because you're going through perimenopause, and then it's doubling again, and you're just gonna feel like shit, really, because you're going to be experiencing some really heavily estrogenic symptoms. Magnesium and chlorine, both of those things are in that Zetamus T supplement we keep mentioning. Both of these things are really good for cortisol regulation. So cortisol is another thing that can go a bit crazy when you do go through menopause. That's why we might experience mood swings or even the hot flushes and the night sweats. That can all be to do with cortisol dysregulation as well. So that magnesium and chlorine is just really nice and really calming on the nervous system. Vitamin D has been proven in many studies to help with menopausal symptoms. Ashwagandha as well works a similar way to magnesium and chlorine. However, ashwagandha is herb. Avoid dairy. Dairy is a big one because it increases inflammation through what's known as histamine. Histamine is like, you get hay fever or something, we take antihistamines to stop sneezing. Histamine can cause a lot of inflammation in our body, so if we're having a lot of dairy, we're having a lot of inflammation, and then that can add to that estrogen roller coaster and the extremes of it. Look after your gut. You want to look after your gut so you're clearing out all those hormones effectively. Flax seeds and maca, like I mentioned before, both great for increasing estrogen if you are having those really low estrogen symptoms. But you want to make sure that you are probably in the menopausal phase by then, so you want to make sure that you're just experiencing low estrogen symptoms, you're not still roller coastering. And also, black cohosh and sage have been both proven to be amazing with hot flushes, mood swings, night sweats, and a lot of other menopausal symptoms. So yeah, they're both herbs. That is all.
Time. If you guys have been holding on to some questions, we can answer them. And also, I'd like you guys to fill out a feedback form for us. Plus, if you'd like to receive the homework and the slides from this seminar, you need to put your email down on here. So I had that around. You got pills.
So does anybody have any questions at all for us? Anyone? Yes?
You mentioned that when you had your blood test taken, I think your hormone levels that came back as normal, but then you got to test it another time, it's different. When would be an optimal time to get them tested if you want to see any balance?
Yeah, cool, great question. So the best time to get your hormones tested is 7 days before you would get your period. So this is because you've ovulated, and this is when progesterone should be at its highest and estrogen is high again, so it's a good time to see if you have actually ovulated and how high your progesterone is, and you can also measure your other stuff during that.
What if you don't have a period anymore?
Well, then you just have to get it tested whenever. And then there's also like so if you don't have a period at all, there's a bracket that like responds to, so if you're not having a period, your hormones should be fairly low because you're not actually having that period. So then if you can just test your hormones whenever, and it will be compared to that reference range that is normal for that time of your life, if that makes sense.
And what if you're on the pill and then you pill bleed but you're not sure?
There's no point testing your hormones if you're on the pill. You could possibly look at your testosterone, but yeah, I wouldn't recommend it. Yeah.
If you go off the pill, how long should you have to wait before you test things and everything?
It completely depends. Often, yeah, like I said, so some people when they finish the pill, they might not get a regular cycle for months and months. Some people might not even get it for years. So it's really good to test your hormones once you are having a regular cycle, so you do know when to test them. Yeah.
I've been off the pill for like 2 years, I think. So would you say by now, like things should be fine, or can they still be?
They can still be hectic if you haven't actually addressed all the different hormonal imbalances. It took me a long time.
Every time I get my hormones, they come back like perfect, nothing wrong. I don't have any issue, but I do.
Yeah, do you know when you're testing it in your cycle?
Yeah, I wouldn't know off the top of my head.
Yeah. See, a lot of doctors, they just tell you to get tested on day one. And it's just like, there's no point even testing on day one because our hormones should be low then anyway, because that's how we've gotten our period. So then they compare those day ones to their reference range and they say, hey, you're in the reference range. But it's like, of course we are, because we just got our period.
You also have to remember that often their normal ranges are quite broad because for them they just want you to be healthy and living. It's not optimal, so it could actually be beneficial looking at someone who's more interested in optimizing hormones and reducing those symptoms. That's why naturopaths and holistic doctors are actually really good for that. So you can still get your blood test done at the right time by a doctor, but maybe get some to analyse in a little bit more detail.
Yeah. Yeah.
I want to rule out things through testing
Yeah.
so that I have a really accurate picture of what's what and like what's causing it and things like that. Do you have like a large amount of resources of what's the best place to go, what tests to get,
Yeah.
like that? Like,
Yeah.
I find that's really difficulty because doctors are
Yeah.
useless.
So I can write some stuff down for you in ways that you can sort of talk to your doctor about it. Even that book that I mentioned before has like ways of talking to your doctor, and it's got like perfectly like written out like what tests you should get if you're experiencing what symptoms and stuff. Yeah. So I can write something out for you if you like. Yeah.
Can you recommend people that are specialising in this stuff, like the natural therapy and the naturopathy?
Sorry?
Like, can you recommend people that
Yeah, Nikki.
can go to that specialising?
Yeah. There is one really amazing female hormone naturopath in Perth that there's two that I highly recommend. You can also come and see me, and then I can write a letter to your doctor and work with your doctor to get these things tested. That's a really good way of going about it as well, because I know the medical lingo, so I can actually be like, please do this, but in a way that they'll understand and respect. Not every doctor will still respect that. A lot of doctors still don't respect naturopaths. But yeah, so as far as doctors that work with this stuff, I'm not sure of yet.
Unless like the guy which was a functional medicine doctor, so he was a doctor, but he'd kind of gone through the normal route of medical stuff, and he decided he wanted to go more holistic. So he still had all the knowledge, but he used different techniques to figure out what was going on. So that was how I figured out, because like, it wouldn't have been accurate to find out how my cortisol was based on just a normal blood test, because it's going all over the place.
That's what I find is that people confuse and they don't give you the time of the day and they come up within the normal range.
Yeah.
So you need to find someone who's really going to go to the next level.
The doctors do the testing, but you usually want to go to someone like Kirsty mentioned, or a naturopath who will interpret the test at a different standard.
I've got a good naturopath just down the road called Jenny Bruce, and she's really, really good. She gives time of day, she does the tests.
Yeah,
She
she's
recommends
awesome. And if she will actually write to your doctor and actually give them all the information that she needs, but then there's a range on what is, you know, in the range that the doctors get. She said you don't even want to be in the bottom half of those ranges because your problem's already there. So
Yeah.
she's, you know, then she'll say that that range is actually not a right range.
She also has all the tests that she can order in, so like you can get a saliva hormone test from her, you get a saliva cortisol test. She's really good.
What was the name? Jenny Bruce.
I can put her number up as well.
She's still doing consults.
Yeah, I'm also doing consults for $20 at my university.
$20, that's so cheap. Wow.
Way cheaper because I'm a student at the moment, but I also do all of these things. So yeah, see me instead. And I really love female hormones, so I would love to work with anyone here.
Even I'm going to see Nikki.
I don't know what to do because he's a male.
I need more progesterone.
You need to start ovulating, that's the problem.
I'm permanently in summer.
Yeah, you definitely are. I don't know. What do we do? Should we ask random questions or is someone else?
Yeah, it's a good idea. Yeah.
Mez is also going to run around and give you guys a little card. And if you're wondering what the card is, it's just a free month with to this membership as well. We just give you a group training membership with Kirsty as well, because they're just a referral card. So we want to thank you guys for coming down here. And if you think that anyone else that you know would actually benefit from spending time with us and getting more in touch with Nikki and Kirsty, then that's a gift that you can give to one of your friends. So we're just giving you the gift of giving as a thank you for coming down. So, like the brown. Right, round of applause for you guys. Who's running Sure. Mez is going to give you a card and a kiss instead when you get to go. Simone's got a question. Nikki, Kirsty, Simone's got a question. It's back.
Supplements like you suggested. Do you have to get tested and things before you would recommend which supplements to take? Or
Depends how intense your situation is. If you're 100% sure that you've got some estrogen problems going on, like this quiz is a really good tool to see that, then I would just take the supplement. You don't always need a test, but it depends how confident you are with what hormonal imbalance you might have. Yeah. I wouldn't test some of my clients. Sometimes you just know. Yeah.
I think like the ones that we've got at here at ATP, they're a little bit more generalised. They're really good. Like if you are feeling anxious or you can't sleep, Equinorex is great. If you're assuming you have a few issues with your hormones, unless your estrogen is too low, then Alpha Venus is great for that. So ATP are pretty good, and then general stuff like vitamin D, magnesium, they're all good. Probably the more detailed ones, like stuff that you find from your naturopath, you probably want to get tested and then give them to you. There are heaps of general ones that will pop on the slides that we give you, and we'll probably give you just a big list of recommendations as well, like where to get started, who to see, who to chat to, and some basic general supplements that are good. Also, now we want to question you guys. Right, so first person to chuck their hand up gets a prize. First person who puts a hand up after the question gets a prize. Right, first question.
Okay, so name me two. Word. Okay, Rigo. Okay, name me two cruciferous vegetables. Who saw who went off first? I don't know. I think I saw Steph. Steph was from class.
Cabbage and cauliflower.
Yeah.
Hey.
Oh yeah, which one do you want? We have 3 gifts.
Are you stressed, struggling with estrogen, or just want some protein?
Protein is a
Top cherry coconut.
Thank you, Dion, and if you just went out donating these specifically for you guys.
Next question. Alright. What are the names of the fight or flight response and the rest and digest response? Or Eva?
There's the parasympathetic nervous system and the sympathetic nervous system. Would that be
Yes. It might be a bit easy because you were studying. Do you like Venus or Cordyceps? Cordyceps?
I don't know. That one's good for hormones here, and that one's good for stress.
Reducing estrogen.
Yeah, like giving us stress.
Stress about this question. So if you're going to answer this and you want the product, you might just want to make sure that you are wanting to detoxify your estrogen. This also helps build progesterone. So probably don't answer the question if you don't need this. Okay, so what phase of our menstrual cycle do we compare to winter? Sorry, that's what I remember.
The period stage?
Yes, correct.
Oh,
I'm so glad you remembered that word.
Alright, that's it. Thank you guys for coming down. We really appreciate it. Hope you learned a lot. Oh yeah, hand back your feedback and your hormone. What's it? Homework forms. Hormone forms.
And don't forget to see Mez for a hug and your free little gift card.
Oh, yeah.